Think you know Texas? Think again tonight. I'll take you through 14 of the Lone Star State's most bone-cold, spine-tingling places, from haunted hospitals and curved bridges to hotels where guests disappear from photographs. Stay with me. Wait until 7, because that one will make you think twice before crossing any old bridge after dark.
One Yorktown Memorial Hospital, Yorktown. You step through the rusted front gates, the air heavy with the weight of forgotten screams. Yorktown Memorial Hospital, built in the 1950s by the Felician sisters, once served as a beacon of hope for the sick and the dying for decades. Its halls echoed with prayers, footsteps of nuns in crisp habits, and the desperate pleas of patients clinging to life.
But when the hospital closed its doors in the late 1980s, something stayed behind. They say the building has become a labyrinth of restless souls, over 2,000 lives lost within these walls. Many under mysterious circumstances. You feel it as soon as you enter. The temperature drops, and the smell of mildew mixes with something faintly metallic, like blood. Paranormal investigators have captured glowing red eyes peering from darkened rooms, EVPs of whispered prayers and angry growls, and shadowy figures darting just out of sight. One visitor swore a cold, unseen hand gripped his wrist so tightly it left bruises. You walk deeper, your flashlight beam trembling as it catches the abandoned surgical ward. The gurney still sits in the center, rusted instruments laid out, as if waiting for the next patient. A shadow moves across the far wall, but there's no one there. Somewhere down the hall, a door slams. The sound echoes like a warning, and then you remember. They say the spirits here don't just want to be seen, they want you to stay forever. Whispered prayers and angry growls, captured as EVPs, mingle with shadowy figures that dart just out of sight. One visitor recounts a chilling encounter, his wrist gripped so tightly by an unseen, cold hand that it left bruises. As you venture deeper, your flashlight beam trembles, illuminating an abandoned surgical ward. A gurney sits eerily in the center, surrounded by rusted instruments. As if poised for the next patient, a shadow glides across the far wall, yet no one is there. A door slams somewhere down the hall, its echo a chilling warning. Then a terrifying thought emerges. The spirits here don't merely wish to be seen, they desire your eternal presence. To the Driscoll Hotel, Austin, you step into the grand lobby, bathed in the warm glow of chandeliers, the marble floors gleaming beneath your feet. Built in 1886 by Colonel Jesse Driscoll, this was once the pride of Austin, an opulent haven for Texas high society. But behind the gold leaf and velvet curtains lies a history steeped in sorrow. Legend says Colonel Driscoll himself never left. Guests have reported the distinct scent of his cigar drifting through empty halls, the creak of heavy boots pacing the corridors at night. But his spirit is not the only one wandering here. Room 525 carries a chilling reputation. Two brides decades apart took their own lives here, each on their honeymoon. The air in that room is said to press against your chest, thick and suffocating, as if the walls themselves remember their despair. Then there's the little girl she's seen bouncing a ball down the staircase, wearing a Victorian dress. Witnesses describe the ball rolling to a stop at their feet, yet the girl vanishes when they look up. Paranormal investigators have recorded faint giggles in the empty hall doors, unlocking on their own, and sudden cold spots that linger even in the sweltering Texas summer. As you ride the elevator up, the lights flicker. You're alone, yet you can feel someone watching, standing just behind you in the mirrored wall. A subtle thud of a ball hitting the carpet and rolling towards you is heard as the doors open. The historic Jefferson Hotel, Jefferson. As you push open the heavy front door, the scent of aged wood and something faintly sweet greets you. The historic Jefferson Hotel, built in the late 19th century, began as a bustling cotton warehouse before transforming into a grand hotel. In its heyday, it welcomed riverboat travelers, merchants, and dignitaries. However, somewhere along the way, the laughter faded, replaced by whispers and shadows that never left. The most infamous story here is of a heartbroken guest in 1912 who hanged herself in her room after her lover abandoned her. They say she still wanders the second floor, her footsteps slow and deliberate. Guests report the faint tug of unseen hands on their clothes, or waking to the sound of sobbing in the dark. In room 19, the air grows inexplicably cold, and objects shift across the dresser without a sound. Then there are the lights, old bulbs flickering in unison, as if signaling some message from the other side. Paranormal teams have captured EVP recordings of a woman's voice, whispering, "Get out," followed by the slam of a door no one touched. One couple checking in swore they saw a figure standing at the end of the hall until it simply faded into the wallpaper. As you make your way down the long, dim corridor, the floorboards creak under your feet. Somewhere behind you, a door clicks shut. You didn't hear anyone pass, and in the reflection of the antique hallway mirror, there's a pale woman staring back at you. But when you turn, the hallway is empty. 4. The Alamo, San Antonio. You stand before the weathered limestone walls of the Alamo, its facade bathed in the glow of evening lights in 1836. This was no mere mission. It was the site of one of the bloodiest battles in Texas history. For 13 days, Texan defenders fought against the Mexican army, outnumbered and surrounded when the final assault came. More than 180 defenders fell. Their bodies burned, their spirits bound to this ground. In defiance, the Alamo's history is carved into its stones. But some say the real story lives in what lingers. Here, guards have reported phantom soldiers patrolling the ramparts at night, their muskets at the ready. Visitors speak of hearing the faint echo of battle, drums beating steel, clashing men shouting in languages long silent in the chapel. The temperature drops suddenly, and an unseen presence brushes past as if a soldier is hurrying to his post one night. A security guard swore he saw a tall man in 19th century uniform standing at the entrance. When he called out, the figure simply turned and walked straight through the wall. Others tell of shadowy shapes moving along the courtyard, only to vanish when approached. As you step inside the cool, dim interior, the silence is heavy, broken only by the faint rhythmic sound of boots on stone. You glance down the aisle, but no one is there still. You feel it. The watchful eyes of those who swore never to surrender, even in death. Hotel Galveston. Do you walk into the elegant lobby of the Hotel Galvez, the queen of the Gulf, its grand chandeliers sparkling as the sea breeze drifts in from the shoreline. Built in 1911, the hotel has survived hurricanes, roaring parties, and decades of luxury, but beneath its polished charm lies a tragedy that still walks its halls. Known as the Lovelorn Lady, a tragic figure from the 1950s haunts room 501. She checked in, awaiting her fiancé, a mariner at sea. Days turned into weeks with no news, leading her to believe his ship was lost. In despair, she hanged herself, unaware of the cruel twist. He returned alive, only to find her gone forever. Guests in room 501 report strange occurrences. Lights flicker inexplicably. The faint scent of roses, permeates the air, and a crushing sadness envelops the space. Staff have heard soft sobbing from the empty room, witnessed doors unlocking themselves, and seen mirrors fogging as if breathed upon. Her presence isn't confined to room 501. Late at night, elevator doors open to an empty shaft. A shadowy figure has been spotted near the 5th floor windows, gazing out at the sea, her face pale and filled with longing. As you pass room 501, the hallway grows colder. A faint perfume teases the air, and a soft trembling whisper echoes just behind you. Why didn't you come? 6. The USS Lexington, Corpus Christi. You step onto the steel deck of the USS Lexington, the mighty blue ghost of World War II. Launched in 1942, she survived 5 kamikaze attacks, countless battles, and the loss of hundreds of crew, now docked as a museum. She rests in the harbor, yet her war isn't over. They say the Lexington is still patrolled by the men who served aboard her visitors report, hearing boots marching along the empty corridors, the clang of metal tools in deserted engine rooms, and voices calling orders from nowhere. One recurring figure is a young sailor in a crisp uniform smiling politely before disappearing into thin air in the engine room. Investigators have captured EVPs of urgent commands, "Get below now," followed by the distant rumble of explosions. Some have felt cold, hands on their shoulders, guiding them towards safety, as if the battle is still raging in another time. But it's the sick bay that chills most to the bone. Beds remain neatly made, medical instruments laid out, and yet the faint moans of pain drift through the air. Staff tell of doors that slam shut behind them, and shadowy figures passing by in the dim red emergency light. As you make your way down a narrow silent passageway, the ship's steel seems to hum beneath your feet. A voice whispers from the darkness, low, urgent, and close. You turn, but the passage is empty. The blue ghost has earned her name, and she's not letting go of her crew. 7 Goldman's Bridge, located in Denton, is also known as the Old Alton Bridge, built in 1884. Its rusted iron frame stretches over dark waters, once connecting Denton and Copper Canyon. However, locals refer to it by a more ominous name, Gutman's Bridge, a place where the barrier between life and death is said to blur. The unsettling legend revolves around Oscar Washburn, an honest black goat farmer renowned for his animals in the 1930s. After placing a sign that read "This way to the Goat Man," the Kulix clan allegedly abducted him from his home at night. They brutally beat him, tied a noose around his neck, and threw him from this very bridge. When they looked below, his body had vanished. Some believe the devil himself claimed him, and that he returned, no longer human. Those who dare to cross the bridge after dark report chilling encounters, glowing red eyes watching from the tree line, the sound of heavy hooves on the wooden planks, and an intermittent stench of decay carried on the wind. Car engines stall on the bridge, phones die instantly, and visitors have felt claws rake across their backs. Paranormal teams have captured deep guttural growls on audio recorders, and orbs moving against the wind. One witness swears they saw a half-man, half-goat figure emerge from the shadows only to vanish. When the flashlight beam hit it, you take a step forward, the boards groaning beneath your feet from somewhere ahead. You hear its slow, deliberate footsteps, but not the sound of boots. It's the sharp, hollow clack of hooves, drawing closer. 8. The Baker Hotel, Mineral Wells. You stand at the foot of the towering Baker Hotel, its 14 stories, casting a long shadow over Mineral Wells, opened in 1929. It was once the crown jewel of luxury, its mineral water baths, drawing the rich and famous from across the country. Politicians, movie stars, and socialites roamed these halls, but behind the glamour, the hotel kept its share of dark secrets. One of the most enduring tales is of a mistress said to have lived on the 7th floor. She was the lover of the hotel's manager, but when the affair soured, she took her own life by leaping from the balcony. Guests and urban explorers report the scent of her perfume lingering in the empty corridors, her silhouette seen drifting past windows high above. Then there's the spectral bellboy, a young man in a crisp uniform spotted delivering towels to rooms that have long been abandoned in the ballroom. Ghostly music drifts through the air, and shadowy couples dance beneath a chandelier that hasn't shone in decades. Paranormal investigators have captured disembodied footsteps in the hallways, elevators stopping at the wrong floors, and cold drafts sweeping through rooms with sealed windows. One witness claimed that as they stood on the rooftop, a woman's hand, cold and firm, gripped their arm, pulling them toward the ledge.
Now, as you gaze up at the silent windows, you can almost see movement behind the glass, a figure watching, waiting. And if you listen closely, you might just hear the faint, haunting melody of a ballroom waltz playing for guests who never checked out.
9. The Magnolia Hotel Siggy. You step inside the Magnolia Hotel, its wooden floors creaking under your weight. Built in 1840, it began as a 2-room log cabin before expanding into a stagecoach stop, then a grand hotel. Over the decades, it witnessed gamblers, outlaws, and weary travelers passing through, some of whom never left the building, sat abandoned for years. Boarded windows and dusty rooms once characterized this hotel. During its restoration, workers reported disembodied children's laughter, tools vanishing and reappearing, and footsteps on upper floors. Currently, the owners assert that at least 13 spirits reside within its walls. One is Emma, a little girl believed to have succumbed to illness in the 1800s. Guests describe her tugging at their hands, giggling in darkness, and rolling her favorite ball. Another presence is a shadowy male figure, often seen at the foot of beds, with an obscured face. Finally, there's the lingering presence of serial killer William Faust, a former guest who murdered a young girl nearby. His presence is marked by sudden chills, a faint scent of cigar smoke, and the unsettling sensation of being watched from doorways. Paranormal teams have recorded EVPs of children crying doors, slamming violently, and objects moving on their own. Some visitors report waking at 3 a.m. to the sound of soft humming, only to find the source is an empty corner. As you pass the old staircase, you hear a faint patter of footsteps above you. The building is silent, yet you know you're not alone. And in Magnolia, the dead are far more welcoming than the living. 10. The Grove Jefferson. You step through the wrought iron gate into the Garden of the Grove, a Greek revival home built in 1861. At first glance, it's charming. White columns, green shutters, and blooming flowers. But the air here feels heavier, as if the earth itself remembers too much. Over the years, this home has been a private residence, a boarding house, and even a rental property. Yet every owner tells the same story. You don't live in the Grove alone. The land was once part of a busy river port, and some believe it's cursed, marked by centuries of conflict and tragedy. Inside, the atmosphere shifts instantly. Shadows flit along the walls, and cold spots linger in sunlit rooms. One recurring figure is a woman in a long black dress, her face pale and eyes hollow. Guests have seen her standing silently by the parlor window, staring toward the street as if waiting for someone who will never come. Paranormal investigators have captured muffled voices in empty rooms, the sound of heavy boots crossing the upstairs floor, and objects moving inches at a time, as if nudged by invisible hands. One former tenant swore they would hear whispering in the dead of night, words too low to understand, until the final night, when a voice hissed clearly, "Get out." As you step back outside, sunlight filters through the trees, but the uneasy feeling doesn't fade from an upstairs window. You catch the briefest glimpse of a shadow moving away from the glass. Someone was watching you leave, and maybe, just maybe, they wish you hadn't. 11 The Manger Hotel, San Antonio. You cross the threshold of the Manger Hotel. Its polished brass and rich mahogany glowing under soft light. Opened in 1859 beside the Alamo, it quickly became a gathering place for cowboys, cattle barons, and dignitaries. Theodore Roosevelt himself once recruited Rough Riders in the hotel bar. But the Manger's history isn't all glory. Some of its guests never checked out. The most famous is Sally White, a chambermaid in the 1870s. After a violent argument with her husband, she fled to the hotel, seeking safety. But he found her the next morning. She lay mortally wounded in the street outside today. Guests see Sally in her crisp uniform, arms full of towels, gliding silently through the halls. Sometimes she vanishes through a wall before their eyes, but she's not alone. A man in a top hat is often spotted in the bar, nursing a drink that never empties. Others have awoken to the sensation of someone sitting on their bed, only to find the imprint of an unseen figure still pressed into the mattress. Paranormal investigators have recorded disembodied whispers near the old wing, and caught sudden cold gusts sweeping through sealed rooms. As you stand in the quiet hallway, the faint scent of lavender drifts past Sally's favorite perfume. From the corner of your eye, you catch a figure turning into the next corridor. You hurry after her, but when you round the corner, the hall is empty except for a single folded towel lying on the floor. Yes, stepping inside Presidio La Bahia, a stone fortress built by the Spanish in 1749, an eerie quiet descends. The air carries a faint scent of gunpowder, a phantom echo of the centuries of conflict that bled into this soil. Originally a military stronghold, it witnessed the struggles of Spanish soldiers, Mexican troops, and Texan rebels. Its darkest day arrived in 1836, during the Texas Revolution, when over 300 Texan prisoners were executed under Santa Anna's orders. Their bodies were burned or buried in mass graves, and some say their cries still echo on the wind. Even now, visitors report seeing ghostly sentinels pacing the walls at night, their bayonets glinting in moonlight before vanishing into the stone itself. In the chapel, shadows move across the pews, even when the candles are still. Some have heard whispered prayers in Spanish, followed by the sharp report of a rifle. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs of men shouting orders, the clatter of boots on cobblestones, and low moans that seemed to seep from the very ground. One tourist swore they felt a firm hand shove them as they crossed the courtyard right where the executions took place. As you leave, the wind picks up, carrying a sound. You can't quite dismiss the faint rhythmic beat of a military drum. You glance back at the wall, and for a moment you see them rows of soldiers, pale and still, watching you, with eyes that have not closed in nearly 200 years.
13 Glenwood Cemetery, Houston. You step through the wrought iron gates of Glenwood Cemetery, where marble angels and weathered headstones rise from a sea of oak-shaded grass. Founded in 1871, it became the final resting place for Houston's elite politicians, tycoons, and war heroes. By day, it's serene, almost beautiful, but when the sun dips below the horizon, the cemetery changes, the air grows heavy, and the silence feels...
Watchful locals speak of a tall, faceless figure that roams between the mausoleums, always just far enough away to make you question if you saw it at all. Visitors have felt sudden chills on warm nights, their breath misting in the air despite the Texas heat. Some hear faint footsteps following them along the gravel path, stopping when they stop. One of the most unsettling tales comes from near the oldest section, where mourners have reported hearing soft weeping. Paranormal investigators have recorded these cries, low, heartbroken sobs that fade into the rustling leaves. Others have captured ghostly voices, murmuring names, as though the dead are calling to the living. There are darker encounters too. People speak of being touched by unseen hands, their shoulders squeezed, their hair tugged, and then there's the legend of the shifting angel, a statue whose head is said to slowly turn to watch you as you pass. As you make your way back to the gate, you glance over your shoulder for just a heartbeat. You see a shadow slip behind a monument. When you go to look, there's nothing there, only the soft creak of the gate as it swings shut, as if the cemetery itself is reluctant to let you leave. You step onto East Mills Avenue, the neon glow of downtown El Paso fading as you near the old DeSoto Hotel, built in the early 1900s. It has seen decades of travelers, long-term residents, and whispers of things that should have stayed buried on the surface. It's just another aging building, but those who've spent a night here know better. The basement is where the stories turned dark. Locals claim it was once the site of occult rituals with satanic symbols etched into the walls. Visitors describe sudden, unshakable dread the moment they step inside, as though the air itself thickens. Paranormal investigators have reported seeing a little girl named Sarah, her dress tattered, her face pale, peeking from behind doorways. Soft giggles often precede scratches on the skin of those who venture too close. EVPs have captured deep growls and urgent whispers in an unidentifiable language. Doors slam in empty hallways, and shadows unnaturally lengthen under flickering lights. In the dead of night, guests have awakened to a figure at the foot of their bed, its outline human, but its head twisted at an impossible angle. One former resident swore they found small soot-blackened handprints on their sheets after hearing footsteps circling their bed, despite no one under 4 feet tall having been in the room. As you back away toward the street, your gaze lingers on the second-floor window for a split second. You see her, Sarah, watching you, smiling faintly, and then the curtains close, though no one is there to pull them.
If your skin's still crawling, hit like and tell me in the comments which place you dare or refuse to visit. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our deep dive into the worst overnight stays. Until next time, if you hear footsteps when you're home alone tonight, don't turn around.